Everyone, my name is Eric Hopkins, aka Joe, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, my wrestling reviews, I'm probably going to start to kind of go back to a little bit more of a format to where I kind of discuss the major things that happen on the shows because I realize going over 5 hours of wrestling a lot of times is just a lot of work to do. So, I want to kind of make these videos a little shorter too because I know a lot of people don't want to sit around for hour-long videos. So, with that being said, let's get into Collision and Rampage this week. Without going into it a whole lot, because there wasn't a whole lot when it comes to story, I guess, leading into the pay per view. I mean, there were little things here and there, no doubt about it, but these shows are mostly reserved for professional wrestling. If something major does happen, I will discuss it here on the channel. The couple of the things I wanted to talk about on Collision, though, that I really thought was pretty cool was Serena Deeb versus Anna Jay. I thought that was an outstanding match between those young ladies. Anna Jay's is drastically improved, and Serena Deeb, obviously, we knew she was going to get the win heading into Double or Nothing with her match against Tony Storm. But at the same time, it's good to see these two ladies put on a great show. Also, I thought it was interesting that Brian Cage was able to defeat Anthony Bowens of the Acclaimed. Again, I know Anthony Bowens is more of a tag team wrestler, but good to see Brian Cage get a big win here. I was really excited to see that. And like I said, Collision and Rampage was a good show. I thought Will Ospreay and Shane Taylor was great. And the main event, FTR and Bryan Danielson versus Lance Archer and the Righteous, was also underrated. I think I see a lot of the Wyatt family in the Righteous a little bit. I think it's kind of the AEW's version of that. I think that could go over very well. But yeah, the wrestling was a lot of fun on here. I enjoyed it. I know a lot of people kind of criticize AEW right now for their lack of storytelling, especially on Collision and Rampage. But they do have minor stories. It's not so much the heavyweight storylines like the main events and things like that. That's mostly reserved for or for Dynamite. But at the same time, I like the stuff that they're doing on the weekends, and I highly enjoy them. So I highly encourage you guys to check them out. AEW just gets so much hate at this point. And I'm not saying that, AEW is perfect. They're absolutely not. I actually thought that this week's Dynamite, as a matter of fact, was not the greatest Dynamite, especially for a go-home show for Double or Nothing, their 5-year anniversary of being a company here, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, I thought that this could have been a little bit better. I thought on the card in itself had its moments as well. I thought Kyle O'Reilly and Malakai Black was an outstanding match. Those two guys were great. And again, that played into some storylines that they were doing with Adam Copeland as well. All the stuff does have storyline in it that interweaves with everything else that is going on. It's just a little more subtle than the stuff that WWE will do. So I like that sort of thing. I know a lot of people kind of want it to be a big, dramatic, over the top, like the Bloodline stuff with The Rock and Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns and things like that. But not every storyline is going to be like that. WWE does always tend to do a little bit better job in the storyline department, at least lately. But at the same time, it does not mean AEW doesn't have storylines. Like I know everybody was complaining about the main event of this show with Bryan Danielson versus Satnam Singh. What's the point of doing this match? Blah blah blah. Well, if you watch other shows like Collision, you would see that on Collision, Sanjay Dutt, who is Satnam Singh's manager, accepted the bounty that the Young Bucks and the Elite put out on Bryan Danielson's head to weaken him up for the Anarchy in the Arena match at Double or Nothing. So it made narrative sense for them to accept the bounty and try to, collect on that cash and try to take out Bryan Danielson, whether it be by a win or by taking him out of the match or injuring him or whatever they got to do. So again, it made narrative sense. We had tag team with Orange Cassidy, Will Ospreay versus Trent and Roderick Strong, again, building upon those feuds. Moxley was in the building. He confronted Konosuke Takeshita, the Bang Bang Gang. Obviously, we got all that stuff. So let's get into the show here. We had a cool opening video package to start Dynamite this week that featured clips from the Furiosa movie. So those of you who are saying that, Warner Brothers is going to cancel AEW, clearly they like what AEW is doing because they were promoting one of their big movies this summer with AEW. The intro kind of mixed some AEW stuff as well as the Furiosa film in there. So I actually enjoyed this. I thought it was a lot of fun. I need to go check out Furiosa this weekend, so hopefully I'll have a review for that on the channel sometime next week. We'll have to wait and see. Memorial Day weekend's kind of busy for me, but we'll get around to it hopefully. But yeah, I thought this was a fun way to start the show, and it also shows that WBD and AEW have a good working relationship, and I expect that TV deal to be renewed at some point. I don't know exactly when, but especially with the NBA leaving for NBC, it sounds like Warner Brothers Discovery is going to be looking for some good quality programming, and AEW is probably going to get that payday. So everybody just needs to calm down. If you don't like AEW, fine, don't watch at this point. I don't understand why everybody's got to be like, "Oh, I hope AEW dies." It's so stupid. It's bad for the business if AEW were to die. So just if you like WWE, watch WWE. If you like AEW, watch AEW. Simple as that. But the show opened up with the aforementioned tag team match between Orange Cassidy, Will Ospreay versus Roderick Strong and Trent Beretta. As soon as the bell rang, Orange Cassidy hopped off the apron and went after Beretta while the aerial assassin traded shots with Roderick Strong in the ring. What unfolded here was an energetic and chaotic match. All four men put in a lot of effort to make that this a solid opening contest, and the commentary, which also had Don Callis on it as well, did a great job addressing the storylines and some past interactions between men who found themselves as partners. Wardlow at the end showed up here and took out Will Ospreay, paving the way for Roderick Strong to pin Orange Cassidy. The beatdown of Will Ospreay continued by the Undisputed Kingdom, while Trent Beretta kept going after Orange Cassidy on the ramp and choking him out as well in a triangle choke. The aerial assassin was busted open while Orange Cassidy was choked out here. So yeah, this is definitely the first time we've seen Will Ospreay really kind of on his back foot here, not really getting some victories and stuff like that. So even though he didn't take the pinfall loss here, keeping him strong going into the match against Roderick Strong, I think it made more sense for Orange Cassidy to take the pinfall here. So in that regard, I thought it was a good booking decision. This obviously being the go home show for Double or Nothing, this tells me that Will Ospreay is definitely winning that international championship on Sunday against Roderick Strong, as many people expect him to do. Roderick Strong and the Undisputed Kingdom are just really being hurt right now with the injuries to Adam Cole and MJF. Ever since all that took place at the pay-per-view in December and MJF and Adam Cole were injured, the Undisputed Kingdom has kind of, not been able to live up to their full potential because their main storylines were not there no more. So unfortunately, there's only so much that Tony Khan can do about that when it comes to the booking and the storytelling of that. They just kind of got the short end of the stick and they drew the short straw. So hopefully that will improve once those guys come back and we can kind of pick that back up. But at the same time, as for right now, they're kind of just Roderick Strong and the Undisputed Kingdom are just kind of holding it together right now, and hopefully they'll be able to do that even after Roderick drops the title to Will Ospreay. But that is definitely happening, I think, this weekend. The Bang Bang Gang came out for a promo, which kind of feels like they're not really calling themselves Bullet Club Gold anymore. But either way, we'll roll with it. Bang Bang Gang came out for a promo and was met by the reunited Death Triangle. Penta, Ray Phoenix, and Pac rushed the ring and attacked Jay White, Austin, and Colton Gunn here. But yeah, it's during Jay White's promo, there was a guy. I don't know who it was in the crowd who basically just yelled out, "Who writes this?" So clearly they weren't loving Jay White's promo here. But at the end of the day, I thought this did a great job of setting up the trios match, potentially for the Unified Trios World Championships here. We don't know if exactly will be for the titles yet. They were kind of teasing like it maybe could be, for the titles, but that may not be announced until Collision this week. Gives you a reason to watch Collision. So again, for those of you people who say that Collision doesn't have storylines all the time, like I mentioned earlier that they don't have a ton all the time, but they do tie into stuff that happens on Dynamite. So in this regard, I think they're going to do a few things on Collision this week that may actually hopefully draw some viewers at this point, because I think this right here will further this, and we'll probably get this announced as a title match over there, and we'll get the reasoning for it on that show. So hopefully that will happen, but not every week. I understand that Collision doesn't have storylines every single week, but at the same time, I think they're trying a bit. And not only that, there was no Mercedes Moné or Willow Nightingale on Dynamite tonight. This was very packed top to bottom from the sounds of things, and maybe there's a thing here and there they could have cut or whatnot. But at the same time, I think we'll probably get the final go home segment for Willow Nightingale and Mercedes Moné on Collision this week as well. So that's something worth checking out. Next up was the triple threat match to determine Chris Jericho's challenger for the FTW title at Double or Nothing. Jericho and Big Bill were on commentary to watch the action. Brian Keith, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata all had a triple threat match here, or a trios match, or three-way match, whatever AEW calls them. They don't call them triple threat matches. But Keith was cornered first by Hook and Shibata, but when they had a brief stare down, the bounty hunter took both of them down. A lot of triple threat matches will end up being a series of one-on-one exchanges while they take turns selling, but all three competitors were heavily involved from start to finish. It helped make this more entertaining than the average trios match here. Keith ended up tapping out to Shibata and Hook at the same time. So Hook and Shibata were both declared the winner, which means Chris Jericho will fight both men on Sunday. This I wasn't a big fan of because this is kind of lazy booking in my opinion. Again, I love AEW, but I'm going to criticize it here and there when it does deserve it. And to me, it's like how. I know there's been teases in the past of two people pinning the same guy, but then it's usually broken up and things like that. In this case, both guys had submissions on Brian Keith, and he tapped out while they both had submissions on, and the referee raised both of their hands and said, "Well, you both won." To me, that's kind of a cheap, finish. It's just kind of like, eh. I understand why they wanted to get both men in the match with Chris Jericho because they both kind of have a storyline going on for the FTW Championship. And of course, Hook and Shibata kind of more of a friendly competition thing, but they both want a shot at Chris Jericho. I just feel like there could have been a better way of going about it here. But at the same time, at least they were trying something different, but the crowd didn't care for this. They kind of crapped all over it, and they were chanting, let them fight, let them fight. But at the same time, I don't know. It just didn't hit for me. I didn't think it was a great way to end the segment to set up the match to pay-per-view, but at least they were trying something different, I suppose. I'm sure the match at the pay-per-view will be just fine. It's just that I thought the way they went about it was not the greatest in my opinion. Konosuke Takeshita made his way out to take on Matt Sydal, who did not have a televised entrance, so that kind of tells you where this is going to go. This bout was pretty predictable because of that, but given Sydal the enhancement talent entrance made it even more obvious. Sydal got in a little bit of offense, but this was a glorified squash match for sure. Big Takeshita picked up an easy win, as he should. I mean, going into the go home show, you can't beat him before he gets his IWGP Eliminator match against John Moxley at the pay per view. So yeah, that's definitely going to be a thing. Takeshita, after the match, continued to attack Matt Sydal, which brought out John Moxley, who grabbed the mic and looked like he was going to cut a promo on Takeshita, but he ended up just hitting him over the head with the microphone, which we now know is absolutely dangerous after the way it busted up Chris Jericho last week. So then he just kind of kneeled down and said, "I'll see you on Sunday." So yeah, we're setting the stage for that. Simple but effective. I didn't hate it or anything like that, but nothing really outstanding in my opinion. Just a typical, go home segment to set up the pay per view. The AEW World Champion Swerve Strickland was up next as he took on one of his rivals over the past year, Nick Wayne. They had a bloody match on the indie scene last year, and Swerve attacked Wayne during a previous feud, so there was no love lost here between these two guys. Once the champion finally got his hands on Nick Wayne, he whipped him with his belt, which probably should have caused a disqualification. These two know each other so well, so they weren't holding back. We saw some stiff strikes and big bumps without either man taking any unnecessary risk before the pay per view. Even though this was fun, it wasn't exactly competitive most of the time. Swerve put on a dominant performance before getting the win, which makes sense before a title match. So yeah, I mean, I kind of like the fact at the very end he kind of looked at Nick Wayne and said, "I'm sorry," and it just took him out. But yeah, I mean, again, I love what they've done with Swerve Strickland. They've got him finding his niche a little bit. He's got that killer instinct, that edge back, which he did not have when he initially won the AEW World Championship. So I'm glad they're doing that here. But the thing that again, the story really picked up after the match. He was being attacked and of course, Christian Cage decided to run away from Swerve. And the thing about this is, usually when you get the heel running away from the baby face before a pay per view or whatnot or any sort of feud, the heel always jumps in a car. They steal a car and they always end up getting away. Well, I very much enjoyed the fact that as Christian Cage tried to get away, he was blocked by another car, which was being driven by Prince Nana, who was injured weeks ago, and he's now back holding his cup of coffee with that awesome look. So he blocked Christian Cage from getting away, and that allowed Swerve Strickland to pull Christian Cage out of the SUV and continue to pummel him for a few minutes there before Christian Cage was able to get away when Swerve went to grab a steel chair to bash his head between the steel chair and the hood of the SUV here. So good stuff here. I liked it. And of course, it ended with Swerve kind of, staring into the camera with a sadistic smile like I'm going to get him at the pay per view. So again, I love what they're doing here between these two guys. This is one of the better feuds that they've got going on in AEW right now. Give Christian Cage and Swerve Strickland their flowers here, especially Christian Cage, who's taken a lot of flack over the years, especially when he debuted in the company. Everybody thought it was a little bit underwhelming. Christian Cage has lived up to everything that he's been billed to be, and I think he deserves all the credit in the world. Like I said, we had a really good match between Kyle O'Reilly and Malakai Black. Black was out first for his match against O'Reilly. He had Adam Copeland's wedding ring with him, and he treated it like a prize he had won. I really loved that little subtlety there. Both of these men incorporate a lot of kickboxing techniques into their wrestling, so they were treating this almost like a shoot fight as they got started. The way they worked helped set this apart from everything else on the show. Despite the entire bout being even, Black was able to get the victory with his patented spinning kick, the Black Master. I don't know what he's calling it now. This was one of the best matches of the night, no doubt about it, as I mentioned earlier. It felt unique and gave two great performers a chance to shine with their own style. More of this, please. Absolutely loved seeing both these guys get their chance to go one-on-one here. But after some flickering lights, a ton of blood dropped from the rafters and completely covered Malakai Black. So, yeah, this was definitely harkening back to the days of the Brood. We've seen this multiple times throughout wrestling history, no doubt about it. So, yeah, who could have possibly been responsible for this? Well, of course, none other than Adam Copeland himself, who appeared on the Jumbotron and basically said, "Hey, Malachi, careful what you wish for." And he started laughing and cackling like a sadistic killer that the rated R superstar can be. And now that the wedding ring is off his finger, maybe he's tapping into that dark side that Malachi Black wants to see. So maybe Adam Copeland is playing into Malachi Black's hands. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I absolutely love this. I thought it was a great visual. Looked very. There was a lot. There's so much here. I don't know how the ring crew got this all cleaned up before the next bout. But yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I'm hoping to see a very brutal contest this week in the barbed wire steel cage match. I think it could be very violent, very sadistic, and I think it has a lot of good storytelling elements waiting for it to be told here. So I can't wait to see what they do with it and how they take this with Adam Copeland and Malachi. Whether Adam Copeland just kind of gets his win back and gets his wedding ring back, or maybe something a little darker. Because remember, Malakai Black said if you lose this match, you have to bend the knee to the House of Black. So we'll have to wait and see how this goes. But I'm looking forward to it. In my opinion, one of the best go home builds on this show. And then for weeks, we had the teases that we could possibly be getting a tag team match between Tony Storm and Mariah May versus Saraya and Harley Cameron here. Yeah, the crowd gave them some "this is awesome" chance as all four women were fighting in the ring. Time was Tony Storm got the pin for her team, though, but her celebration was short lived as Serena Deeb showed up and took out Tony Storm, Mariah May, and Luther with the chair and her high heel, which ties into the fact that Tony Storm always says, "Watch for the shoe." So, yeah, I mean, this was good in my opinion. I thought it was fun to watch these ladies go at it. Good to see Saraya back in the ring as well. It's been a little bit since we've seen her in the ring, I thought. So yeah, definitely a lot of fun here. I give this a solid B grade in my opinion. So I think all the ladies matches at the pay-per-view are going to be really good. And even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the go home show here, I thought it just kind of felt like a lesser AEW Dynamite, especially for a go home show. Not that the show was terrible in a lot of instances, few things I didn't agree with, but overall, I thought they did okay when it comes to some of the storytelling for the pay per view. But you just kind of expect more going into one of their biggest shows of the year. This is almost it's not all in, but this used to be their kind of their WrestleMania show, and I just kind of expected to have a little bit more. But again, they're hindered by some injuries and things like that right now. But all companies are, so it's not much of an excuse. But at the same time, it's not terrible, but also at the same time, not the greatest thing in the world either. And finally, we got the go home segment on the main event for this week's show, the ever controversial Satnam Singh versus Bryan Danielson. Everybody was talking about how, Omos, everybody would be crapping on this if it was Omos or the great Khali or whatever. But there were a lot of videos going around of Bryan Danielson on X and some of the social media accounts working with giants like Kamala in the past and bringing them to good matches. So I was hopeful that this would kind of happen here, but it seemed like a lot of this match was actually mostly smoke and mirrors. We got a lot of, interference from Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt and all this sort of stuff. There was a spot in the match, especially where Satnam Singh countered a guitar shot that Bryan Dennison had stole the guitar from Jeff Jarrett, and he punched right through it with his fist right through the guitar. So that was pretty cool. But once Satnam Singh was in the label lock, Satnam Singh's allies attacked to cause a disqualification. So that's how the match pretty much ended here, which brought out the Young Bucks. They eventually came out to give Satnam Singh some money before attacking Bryan Danielson himself. Bryan Danielson started to fight back a little bit. He kind of countered a EVP trigger that brought out Kazuchika Okada, who hit him with the Rainmaker. So they drug him up the ramp, and they were going to continue the beatdown with Jack Perry. But that's when we saw an SUV in the back make its way to the arena, and Darby Allin popped out. But then we saw that the SUV was being driven by Tony Khan. Nice little further of the storyline there. So apparently Tony Khan is now officially medically cleared to travel in storyline now. So he also had this look of "go get him, man." So yeah, Darby Allin come out with a flamethrower to scare off the Young Bucks and the Elite here to back off away from Bryan Danielson. Obviously, the FTR, I think they said wasn't medically cleared to come out this week, or that maybe they'll be there on a Collision or whatnot. But they'll hopefully still be ready for the show on Sunday. But yeah, I think this was a nice way to end the show. It was pretty cool to see Darby Allin holding up this flamethrower. It looked like when he got out of the car, it was like a machine gun or something, or I don't know, some sort of rifle. But when he come out and was blowing the flames, I thought, that's pretty dope. So I don't know if Darby Allin will try to use this at the pay per view. Maybe he'll set some tables on fire and jump through it off the top of the arena. I don't know. Darby's nuts, but at the same time, I thought this did a good job with the visual at the end of the show, and it kind of gave that at the end of the show, like, hey, buy our pay per view. So I thought in that regard they did a pretty good job at the very end of the show. There's just a few things here and there I just kind of thought, okay. But overall, I thought the AEW this week was okay. It wasn't terrible. Like I said, I don't know if you can tell in my voice, I just wasn't overly enthralled with it. But at the same time, it wasn't bad or by any stretch of the imagination. I guess at the end of the day, sometimes I just kind of expect a little bit more out of AEW, but sometimes that's my own expectations as well. I think it would do a lot of people a lot of good to kind of just enjoy the shows. And sometimes I'm guilty of having a hard time just enjoying a show because I want to see it done a certain way or I expect more out of it. So sometimes it's just best and just take a step back and realize we're getting competition to WWE because obviously a monopoly is never a good thing. You don't have to like everything both companies do, but at the same time, they're trying to entertain you. Things are never going to be perfect no matter what pro wrestling show you watch. There's always going to be something that can be improved. There's always going to be something that can be better. So at the end of the day, it's just like watching movies. Is the movie perfect? No. Is there a plot hole? Probably. Is it the best storytelling? Probably not. But that's what we do. We tend to critique things, and I just think that there comes a point where you cross the line where it becomes like, oh, it was so bad. You guys, deserve death threats and things like that. That's not the way to go about it. Just try your best to watch stuff and enjoy things because that's what it's there for. Entertainment is there to entertain us. It's not ever going to be perfect. So at the end of the day, I enjoyed AEW this week. I just hope it was a little bit better as the go home show. Just me personally. But what did you guys think? Did you guys enjoy AEW this week? Do you guys enjoy AEW in general? Are you excited for AEW Double or Nothing, or are you preferring to watch King of the Ring or King and Queen of the Ring, as a matter of fact, this weekend? Both pretty good shows on paper. And like I said, despite my negative opinions of some of the things that happened on AEW this week, I do think that Double or Nothing will be outstanding. AEW and WWE as of late have both been performing very well when it comes to their PLEs and pay-per-views. So I think it should be two really great shows this weekend. Comment below, let me know what you guys think. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And until my next video, guys, take care and God bless.